Thank you. You listen to my pleads. You listen to my begging. We are now
never stop.
over 100 subscribers. So let's keep that train rolling. I will keep begging. I will keep pleading for it.
So if you haven't subscribed, add to the 100. The last I looked, we're at 103.
Ooh.
I wonder who the 100th was.
I know. I would love to send him a little gift.
No.
Little shout out on the pod then.
No, we're not that cool. A shout out would be good. I'm not sending you nothing.
I wonder if there's a way that we could find that out.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it shows up and it shows who subscribed, and then I feel like sometimes it doesn't show up of who. Maybe it depends on their account.
Yeah, they might have a private
like
account.
Private or something. But yes, thank you. That's awesome. Keep the train chugging. Keep the train chugging.
Ugh, I feel like I'm breaking this.
Break it. You're getting a new one anyways. If you haven't noticed, I have a new mic stand, and it is so much better than the one that we had before because it doesn't make a whole bunch of sound when you move it, and it also doesn't fall over halfway through podcasts, and then you have to cut it out and set it back up and do all of that.
Are you able to like move it easily though?
Yeah, check this out.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good. Mine, I'm breaking a table while I'm doing mine.
Yes. Yeah, those were junk. Those were the first ones we got, and they sucked from the moment we got them. Because they attach to a thing, but if you don't have a thing to attach to, like you would think, oh, that's a good design, but then it's very specific of what it can attach to, and then what it holds on to, and then how you have it too, of it like extended out.
Then you're putting more, yeah.
It like if
there's not an anchor really.
No, we have a little side table, and that will just tip over if we don't have a bunch of weight on it.
And you got to be careful what it's connected to because it will just rip it apart.
Yeah, it just leaves marks and tears it apart.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting a mic stand for all the listeners, I like the ones on the ground better.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's ones that attach that are way nicer and
or like
whatever.
are drilled into tables.
Right, but we don't. We're doing it in our living room, so it's like.
Yeah.
On the ground is just better.
And I like to be able to move it around if we need to.
Yeah.
Like we have had several guests where we do the setup a little bit differently or we take it back home and then we need to be able to have portable stuff. It's not like we're having like, this is a studio. We always do it in this studio.
Right.
So yeah. I like that. And we'll move and do it in a different spot and whatever. I was thinking about that the other day when we were in Texas, all the different, well, I guess there wasn't a lot of different ways that there was different ways that we did it, not a lot of different locations, but one of them popped up. So every time I go to our channel, it'll still suggest like a recommended video for us.
Oh, sure.
And it's always my vlogs that show up. But one of the ones that showed up was the old podcast where we did it in the living room.
Yes.
I loved that.
It's so funny. The ones that you love, I'm like, oh, the visuals are horrible. It looks bad. It's this, that, whatever.
And also sound. Biggest room in the house. We had nothing filling it, so it was just tile floor. About
sound bouncing off everything.
Terrible.
I know that's the other thing. Like
high
if we get like a rug in here, it'd probably help the sound as well in here.
Yeah.
We'd probably need it on the walls though for it to be like picture perfect. But we did like put this is gonna sound so bad, but it was for data collecting purposes only.
For what?
Data collecting purposes only. DCPO. DCPOs. That's what we were doing.
All I heard was collective purposes only. I was like, collective, like to break collective?
We listened to about 15 seconds of our own podcast in the car to see how the audio was. And I think it sounds pretty good.
I think it sounds really good. Yeah. So. I think it sounds good. I did that when we first started doing it in this setup in my headphones. Oh. Because I don't know why, but there are some podcasts where, and they make music, they record music for it to do this on purpose, where it goes like one ear, in one ear, in one ear, which if it's music, sometimes that's cool. And I know for certain like behavioral development issues with kids, they will like listen to that because then it helps relax them. Oh. But for some people, I think it just makes you sick.
Yeah,
but
I don't
then
like it.
Think of a conversation doing that. Like, start of the sentence, end of the sentence, start of the sentence, end of the sentence. I was like, if that is happening,
yeah, no
one will listen.
No. Well, that happens at Dupre sometimes, where it'll come out of one side speaker and then it'll come out of the other.
I wonder what that is.
And it's always like it's ramping up, so then it comes quicker on either side. You know what I mean?
Oh.
It's always like boom, 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 and it's on either side. I hate it. You want to talk about like not, like you're saying for kids, like it might help them. Oh, I'm not that type of kid.
Yeah.
I do not like it at all.
That's weird. Is it when one certain person talks? Like, is it if I talk or Carrie talk?
It's not when you talk. It's the actual music that they for the dances.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's never weird when you guys talk.
Oh,
it's
that
like
would be
you
bad.
Said, the music was made to do that.
I don't understand.
Out of either side. Yeah, I don't like it at all. It's absolutely the worst.
Yeah.
Well, 3 weeks in, and I'm full-blown addicted to nicotine. So watch out, guys.
And I am 3 weeks back on a caffeine, and I am ramped up.
Yeah.
I am back to my original amount. No, I'm not. I'm really not. I maybe hit my original amount a couple times this past week. And yesterday I got 2 shots of espresso, so that was definitely more than I'm used to, but no, I haven't ramped up.
I don't have an addictive...
Would I love to? Yes. Would I love to go back to espresso with a coffee on top? Yes. Would I love to go back to coffee cubes? Yes. Would I love to go back to energy drinks? Yes. Would I love to go back to C4 packets? Yes.
What's great is I'm going to make that a short and I don't even have to cut anything. That's how I'm doing the podcast now.
Okay. That is when I'm doing my shorts for my Thrive stuff. There are some sections where I am like, there is no space to take out.
I know. Isn't it great?
It is my voice. And I try to like, maybe it's just the sound waves are too small. No. I am just creating sound the entire time. Will not take a breath.
But that's what I like, because then I don't have to cut stuff out. Like, I wish I talked like that all the time.
Start talking really fast?
Not talking fast, just not having pauses in between every single word that you say. And I do it too. I'm the worst at it.
Oh my gosh.
I overanalyze. Maybe not overanalyze, but I want to pick my words. Yeah. It's like I have words in front of me. I'm like, I want that one. I want that one. Because I want it to be a nice, I'm doing it now. I want it to be a good sentence.
Yes.
I don't want to just ramble and it sound like nothing, even though that's what I do.
But then you're like,
yeah, it's like pick up the pace, sloth. Yeah.
Well, that's also what I noticed. Also,
so I know my weaknesses.
For anyone that listens to the shorts that are mostly him talking, or both of us, what do you have to do to the volume while you listen? Because for me, I have to turn it down a little bit. But when it's you talking and I'm like uploading them, I have to turn the volume to max.
I know.
And it's still like not that loud.
For the ones that are me, I should turn it up. For the shorts, the problem is that's what we need. We need one of those things that you have a button so you can click so it shuts your mic off.
Oh.
Yeah, for like the cough and the clearing throat and the swallows and stuff.
Yeah.
Because
I would be good at doing that. Like I could stay on top of that.
Yeah.
I don't know what this throat thing is today. It is dramatic.
Well, we just went back home to Wisconsin for my brother's wedding, and it was awesome. It was so much fun. But I think we're both slightly under the weather. Even just like recovery type stuff. Like it's so dry there that I really get affected by that. And then I come back and it's like having to get my body back into not dry, and it's always the sinus for me. But I feel like just sleep was off and all that kind of stuff. Drinking more, food was off, everything was off. So we probably sound sick, and it's going to be a lot of clearing throat and coughing and whatever.
I wonder if we'd be able to find because I had one and I threw it away in one of my plastic let goes.
My plastic
one of my goes. Like plastic, I went crazy. But a travel humidifier. Because
I just don't
with
think
both
those
of us
work.
Well, I'm not saying to have like in the room, I'm just saying, like, when you go back and if you're just sitting there for a little bit, just like hold it next to your face. That's what I did a couple times when I had it before, because me and Abby were sharing a room. She's from Houston. We were from here. It's like we'd get into these hotels or hotel room and it's dry. Our face would start like flaking off.
Yeah,
that I would just hold the humidifier up to my face.
That's maybe not a bad idea because of how much we travel and go into different climates and stuff. That's maybe not a bad idea, actually.
And it was small. Like, it was easy to pack, which I liked.
We should almost get two, one on your side, because I feel like it happens a lot during sleeping. That to have one on your side, have one on my side, that might be.
I'll just have it when I'm emceeing. Have my space heater right here. My just.
Yeah.
That's also
get a red
not
light
helping.
panel. You have that sitting there.
I mean, that's not helping. I'm also having a space heater blasting me for 8 hours. But I'll take dry over freezing. But that's what I was going to say. Sorry to... Wait, no, you finish, because I feel like it's going to be more on what we're talking about.
No, I was actually going to derail.
Okay, let me derail first.
Well, can I derail? Because it was about the stuff we were talking about before.
Same, but you go.
So I also know I talk very quietly, and you talk loud.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just going to have to deal with it in the audio. Because if I bump my mic up, you're going to get more of her in the background. And if we turn yours down... I think if we turn yours down, it just doesn't...
I feel like the quality isn't as good.
And then it's like you have to, kind of like what you were saying with my shorts, you have to put the volume to max and then you maybe still can't hear it. So that's kind of the problem with our dynamic or whatever. Is like you're a loud talker, I'm a quiet talker, but we don't have the soundproofing in here to where your voice doesn't get picked up in my mic.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned it on the last one too, like if people get bored with my voice, which is funny.
And then Carly was like, yeah, there's definitely a difference when he has his in.
Yeah,
you're way more
funny.
peppy.
Yeah, I don't know. Once this container's gone, I'm going to stop. I don't have an addictive personality, so it's like, I'm not.
Oh, I do.
I'm temporarily addicted until it's gone. And then I'm like, okay, I'm done with it.
It's like having donuts or ice cream. Like, you want it every day if it's in the house. But then as soon as it's gone, you're like, I don't even think about it.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, like, this is just the mouth fixation thing. Like, I just want it.
Something to do.
It's just fun. But we've talked about that before, so you can derail now.
How did you like the cigar? Was that different? Because Carly came in. She's like, Chaney has a cigar out there if you want some. And I'm like, do you remember? I was like, no, I do not.
I don't know. I don't think it has... it'd be something to look up. I don't think it has the nicotine that this does. So I wasn't getting the buzz or any of any of that sort of thing. Again, it's just fun to me. Like that's just fun.
Even better, I think. That's like a drink. Like it's a continual something to do. Like that to me is just like you just are chewing gum.
The problem with cigars, and I would assume it's the same with cigarettes, I've never had cigarettes though, is you have to keep doing it pretty frequently. Otherwise it loses like the flame. Then you have to relight it and you have to keep relighting it.
Oh, wow.
So you have to be...
That's like what people say with... Like, well, I feel like I'm bringing up Carly a lot in this episode, but what she was saying with
the
beer.
episode's just Carly.
Yeah. Shit, Carly said this last weekend.
Yeah.
What she was saying with why she doesn't like drinking beer, or one of the reasons, she's like, I have to drink it cold.
Oh.
So like, so then I'm downing it. Because you're like, don't want it to wait. That's a knock on hot coffee. I like hot coffee, but once it cools down, you lost the spark.
Sure.
Cold, it just stays cold. Like if you ice it, it's just going to be that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like my mom said it too. I'm weird. We both probably are weird. We're much more of like room temperature. We like room temperature water. We don't like cold water that much, or like we'd prefer almost that. Even the beers, like I don't mind if they get not as freezing cold.
For that kind of stuff, I don't mind either. With coffee, it's just like it could be so much better if it was either hot or cold. This in the middle, it's like, oh, my favorite drink of the day. This is my fault like this is it's not a good trait of mine. If it could be better, I want it to be better.
Oh, yeah. You are so that way.
If I'm at a restaurant and this thing would be better with the sauce, I will not eat a single bite until I can get the sauce.
Yeah. Yeah, you are very like maximize the situation.
Yes.
If it's not the best it could be, you're trying to figure out how to make it better. Yeah, I don't mind the room temperature stuff. I almost prefer it.
I think I'm a person of like, I want the extreme feeling to where the hot, and with me looking at more studies, more antidote studies, but studies on drinking things of hot temperature and how that just like works in your system differently. I do notice coffee that is hot, I do get a different sort of ignited feeling than I do with cold coffee. The iced coffee doesn't like give me the zing as much.
Weird.
So then with the hot coffee, now I'm like, okay, now I'm not getting, or when it gets room temp, I feel like, well, I'm not getting the full benefit that I could with the hot coffee. But then if it's room temp and not ice, it's like, well, now it's just not as enjoyable as it could be.
Well, and you were seeing stuff with like warm beverages and warm meals and stuff like that, like kind of easing your gut and stomach stuff too. So
Breakfast
I think for
soup.
people that are maybe having some gut issues too, like you may really like your iced coffee or your cold salads or all your cold meals, but doing more warm beverages might be a little bit better. There was something, which I don't know if there's truth to it. I remember hearing this a long time ago, but that like when you're drinking water, if it's super cold, your body has to bring it to room temperature to then, you know, whatever, digest it and process it and stuff. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but it was something of like, if you want to hydrate faster, have more room temperature water. That I wonder if the same is true. I wonder if that's true, but I wonder if the same is true for even your meals and stuff too. If when you're digesting it, it just is a little bit more difficult when it's cold. That if you're having all those gut issues and that sort of thing, like you could maybe try having more warm food, soups and just like warm meals and more warm drinks.
I don't remember what his title was, but there was a doctor on Him and Her that talked about that. It's like you mostly see female that have the gut issues and the bloating and the digestive problems. And what do they all eat? They don't eat a lot of protein. They eat cold smoothies and salads and like things that are just, I think, promoted as girly foods.
Sure.
That
tend to be cold.
What that does to your system is it doesn't like relax it and warm it up. To where females, what they have studied, at least with our hormone levels, like we are ramped naturally a little bit more. I don't know if that's natural as in it's just a female thing, or if it's just in our society now we typically allow ourselves to be more ramped. But they said they'll find kind of cortisol levels will typically be higher in women, and like across the board, not even if something happens, like they just stay regulated there. And our stress hormones are pumping more. That the food, if we're eating all this cold, keeping our bodies like also like this, and why they also said some females won't benefit. They will still get the benefits that men do with the cold plunges and the cold temperature stuff. Like their physical, you'll get the benefits, your cells will get the benefits, but the hormone release might be a little bit different because we just see that as like, it's a stress, to where if you can regulate, then it's awesome. But if you're already at stress, it's like, don't bring it up. Like you have to be able to bring it down as well. You're only going up and up and up and up.
Well, and that's the thing with exercise, with sauna, with cold plunges. Anytime you're kind of pushing yourself and going past your normal thresholds that you are at, you're getting the benefit of doing that, but it's only so beneficial if you're able to bring all that back down. You know, it's like if you were to sit in a sauna your whole life, obviously you're going to be stressed all the time. But the point is you do the sauna for 20 minutes or whatever, you come out, and then your body's able to regulate and cool down. And that's also, you do the sauna, you stress yourself out. You do the workout, you stress yourself out. You need to then go to something that's non-stressful and relaxing then you're getting the benefits of that. If you go like, you know, I think this is kind of the knock on working out right away in the morning, like before work or whatever, is it's great because it helps you wake up and that sort of thing. But then if you go to a stressful job, or if your job is something that is one of your stressors, you're kind of just keeping that like high cortisol, stressed out state the rest of the day, and you're not getting that relaxing coming down, and then that just added on top of each other. It's like if you don't get enough sleep, just over and over and over again, that's going to add up and be worse and worse and worse, and your body's going to start to get weirder and weirder. That you need that like come back down part of it. Same with the cold plunge. People are doing cold plunges in the morning all the time, but then are you not having that comeback of chill out, relax, whatever, come back to your neutral or even past like real relaxed state? You have to have that. Like that's the recovery part of it, or that's the really maximizing the benefits of what you just did, and really minimizing the negatives, because you could just be constantly stressing yourself out, especially if you have the personality of, if I want to be more successful or get more out of what I'm doing, I'm just going to do more and push more. That's going to have diminishing returns if you're never able to have that relaxation part of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what he was kind of talking about with the food, is eating is a stress on your body. So if you're eating things, and it's simply, it's not, I don't think it's necessarily the temperature, but it's what those foods typically are. Those are harder to break down for your body. So you say you take a salad and it's all raw food. That's going to take more energy and effort for your body to break it down versus something warm that's typically cooked and it's softer and it's easier for your body to digest, and then the nutrients gets in there quicker. My gut never, I mean, it just felt awesome. Not since this past week, but before that, I was feeling awesome, and I was doing soup in the morning. Yeah. Like I started my day with soup, and I put eggs in. It was just broth and eggs. So I was getting a shit ton of protein because I was able to do more eggs because I liked it that way versus me just cooking eggs. I could do one or two more than I usually would do. So, and then on top of having the bone broth, which also has protein in it. So it's like, I'm getting the protein that I need, and it was soothing and it was warm. It's just like, think of a cold day and you get soup. It just like feels cozy. I was starting my day with cozy.
Yeah.
Versus hard fruits, vegetables, smoothies that are cold, icy on my system and harder to break down. That stress just gets amplified. That I was talking to a mom at the studio, and she is like melting away. She just had
in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. She, I don't know, last Christmas, she had a baby. And we've only seen her either directly postpartum or pregnant since we've moved here. So we haven't seen like what is her natural maintenance state. And I was like, you look awesome. She's like, I'm not doing anything. She's like, I'm eating what we normally were eating and I'm exercising, but she's like, I feel like I held on to the weight from the last one because that was also when they found out that one of their kids had eye cancer. And she's like, I think it was just the cortisol. Like I was in such high stress that my body was holding on to the weight that now she's like, I'm doing the same things that I was doing after the last kid. Nothing's different. I didn't have a different gender, because I know sometimes people say that's a difference. She's like, I'm doing nothing different. I am just less stressed. And she's like, and it's just falling off of me. Yeah.
It's crazy how your body does that with stress specifically. And that's why it's...
Because your body doesn't know the difference of stress because there's no food in your environment, or you're getting attacked by an animal, or it's regular society stuff now.
Yeah. And that's what's so difficult about trying to figure that out. I think that's why it takes so much time and so much effort and analyzing to how do I get this away, or what is it that's really stressing me out? And sometimes you don't even realize it or don't get what's going on until you get rid of that thing, and then you look back and you're like, oh yeah, I guess that was what was stressing me out.
So speaking of stuff that was talked about when we were there, what are your... I mean, maybe you don't, but I think one of the things that we were talking about was, and we watched it in the how do you say his last name? Whitehall?
Jack Whitehall.
His last show, where he talks about, he's kind of on this journey per episode where he just had a kid and he's talking about like different things to do with parenting. And one of the episodes was on longevity, and he went and did all of the biohacking stuff and did all these treatments. And then they ended it in a town in Italy that's like one of the biggest blue zones. And they kind of concluded the episode talking about just how it's probably living a happy, low dose, like low stress, easy breezy life that is surrounded by community and hard work and like things that just keep you moving. And I'm like, oh, that's not how I live. That's not how I live. That's not, I would say even at certain points of my life, I would have pushed away from living like that. Like I would have made choices to make sure that I wasn't living like that I would like to, and not just because of that episode. It's things that I think over the last few years, realizing that I need to have more of that. Are there things for you that you agree with that you want to start focusing on? And are there specifics that like I need to chill out with that, or I could let go with that, or I need to just have a different mindset?
Yeah, I think there's so much variance in all that. So you have to figure it out for yourself and what works for you. I think one of the things that is kind of tricky with that episode and what they were talking about and went to and whatever is like, they're going to this family and spending time with them, and it's like they're making their own food and making it from scratch and spending the time together as a family and doing all that kind of stuff. And it seems like it's not so much of the way that they presented it was like, oh, it's just like be around community and family and don't worry so much about what you eat. Don't worry about, what you intake and all whatever. And it's like,
you got to read between the lines a little bit on it.
Like they were having pasta and all of like pasta and wine and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, but that is totally different over there than it is here. So I think that's the worry I have with people that watch something like that and they're like, yeah, I just need to chill out and just like not worry so much about what I eat or do or whatever. And it's like, well, no, that's Italy and they have fresh ingredients and they don't use all the toxins and pesticides and all that stuff that we do with our food and
things that are things that are legal in our country. That's what is pushed in our food supply is illegal there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, they're making pasta from scratch to where I think people take it here and they're like, yeah, I'll just make I'll go get the box of noodles and boil them and I'll just do that. Like I'll make it simple on myself. And unfortunately it's not the same as what they were doing. I think the message is good and their way of going about it and their ideas of it is good, but they also have all of the things to help that with natural foods and real food and making it together and doing all that. The wine that they're having is like homemade and the stuff they're buying is coming from really good sources and that sort of thing. I mean, they even talk about like the tomatoes there are grown in this like super rich environment and all that kind of stuff, and the tomatoes that are grown here are just like not even real tomatoes anymore. They're like genetically modified up the gills, kind of like our corn and all that stuff. So it's just not the same situations, but we tend to take the message and go like, oh, well, I just need to do this and it's the same. It's like, well, no, unfortunately it's not. I think, trying to find ways to relax a little bit more and not have all that stressed out stuff and reduce cortisol and make things simpler and not be so, I think part of like the American society is hard work, push hard, innovate, make things better, make things bigger, faster, stronger, all that kind of stuff. And that tends to be, if you're working hard, you're working 60, 70, 80 hours. It's not, I'm just doing a 40-hour work week or whatever. Or
even I'm working less hours, but like very efficiently and still getting the same amount done. Like, I don't think that's even celebrated either.
No. It's always you could be doing more and you should be doing more and you should be having a full-time job and going to school and, pushing that envelope and doing this and doing that and also focus on your diet and also focus on exercise. Like, it's very much I think Americans, it's very much how do you be the best? And it's always just do more than everybody else. To where over in Europe, it's like,
we're going to do it better. Not more, but better than everybody else.
They have this vibe that it's like, we're just here to enjoy it. I'm not here to go crazy and go buck wild. But there's obviously a ton of variance to that. There's it's not just an American thing versus a Europe thing. It's person by person. But I think the message is good and stuff. Obviously, if you've ever watched any of his stuff before, he already does that with his life of enjoying it very much and like not worrying so much about those things to where, of course, he came to that conclusion. It's like if you were to have us go do that and it's like, we'd come back and go like, yeah, you just got to be active and you got to eat healthy. That's the conclusion we'd have. It wouldn't be, don't worry about those things. So I don't know. I think generally people they're going to think what they think and believe what they believe. And it's going to take time for that seed to be planted and to grow and to help change. I don't think people just watch a Netflix thing and end up changing everything they do because they saw something. Like it's going to take a lot of time for that to happen. But I don't know. I think that stuff is good. I think it's true. I'm always trying to figure out like, okay, what is the stuff that really doesn't matter versus the stuff that does, and how do I sift that stuff out? But I don't know. I didn't take that much away from it, to be honest.
I didn't take that much away from the series. It's more like that's something that I'm trying to be more aware of in general. And then we talked about it with my mom. We talked about it like after the episode was done. It's like kind of pondering that a little bit more, that it seemed like there was a little bit of a theme. And I think when we were used to our life, that when we go back and we're around different people and family members, it's like they live differently than we do. So it's then it like every time it makes me question, okay, so what do I like what we're doing? What do I not like what we're doing? How could we, adopt that? Or, oh, that's kind of cool that they do that. What's our version of that? But I think I'm just kind of, the gears are continuing to turn in that theme of, no, what do I still want to be my high-strung version with, and what is also just like, oh, that's so, I like that. Like, we went to my younger cousin's cross-country meet, and like their life is so, the kids and the sports, like she's doing something all the time. Her brother is like on a higher level hockey team. So he's traveling out of state most weekends, and they're at practices, 5 times a week. They are like all in on the kids and like their jobs are very regular jobs. It's like, they're not doing anything crazy and flashy. It's just about getting the kids to where they're going and having them have the like best experience doing that. It's like, oh, that also looks awesome too.
Yeah. I think that's what, I've taken more away from just being back there and being around our families than that thing. I think especially this last time we were back, just seeing how self-sufficient our families are, like that is always attractive to me of, oh, I want to be that I want to do stuff myself. I don't know.
I think at our age, it's, I don't say tricky, but like we're in that in-between phase of setting up what we want, the future, what is the foundation that we're creating for the future, but then also still trying to have that loose, like just enjoy it type of thing. That you talked about one of the family members that's like, man, like they just seem like they're like, whatever. Like everything is kind of just like, yeah, I'm not going to care about a lot of stuff. Like I'm just here to hang out and do whatever. And like, I'm not trying to put on a face anymore. And it seems like that individual is like getting happier and happier as time goes on. because they're just like, I could care about that, but nah.
Well, and I think
I'm just going to enjoy my family.
I mean, if you've listened to this for long enough, you can tell that we think things are very important. Pretty much everything is very important. And I think as we continue to get older and older, we are dialing that back more and more and just trying to figure out like how to be happier and calmer and less stressed out and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's just something that comes with age. You start to realize what you do have control over, what you don't have control over, and what is worth spending so much time on and what really is important versus what isn't important. And I think it's a very young person thing to be like, I have to do this, or this is important. I got to do this. Why isn't everybody else doing this? This is why, this is the way it is, and blah, blah, blah. And you think everything is such this big deal. And I think the older that we get, the more we have these conversations of just, okay, well, the exciting, crazy, fun lifestyle is attractive to the younger crowd. But then as you get older, you want more stability. You want more calm. You don't want things to be so all over the place and crazy and whatever. That I think, like you said, we're kind of in this phase and slowly transitioning to, okay, what do we actually want life to be, and how are we setting that up? And analyzing a lot of those things that we thought were really important and big deals and everybody should be paying attention to, okay, but that's not fun, and we're not happy with that, or that's not it's like you just want life to be kind of chill and not so ridiculously crazy all the time. And I think some people just embody that much easier than others, and some people don't, and some people do just keep that kind of crazy intensity for forever. And honestly, I think like marriage and kids probably has a ginormous pull or deal with that, of just like you get outside of yourself a little bit and you're like, oh, I was only thinking about what I wanted all the time and how much I want that and how important it is. And then especially when you find somebody like with us where we have the same thought processes and ideas, and you're kind of combining that, and now it's like we're both really doing that.
Double powered.
Yeah. To where then I think it's just you continue to grow up, you continue to become just a little bit more mature, and you just start to chill a little. You're like, okay, this is not that big of a deal. This is not as important. How do I get to what I want? It's like, what kind of life do you want that promotes all of that stuff that's in that Netflix thing of going to the blue zones and everybody's happy and everybody's living a really long time. They're living into their hundreds and they're happy and they're moving around really well and doing all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, now that is becoming more of an importance rather than how do we make a bunch of money? How do we live in the place we want to? How do we have the career that we want to? How do we, do this and do that? Just doing everything. How do we get this? How do we get that? It starts to become less of that, more about just like, what do I want to do and what do I not want to do and what do I want to have and not want to have and how do I build that sort of life? You start to put your eye more on the focus of enjoyment and living a fun life rather than kind of like the accolades of life. It's like, I don't care so much about accolades anymore. That's all I cared about is I want this, I want this, I want this. And now it's like, oh, that I would rather have none of those accolades and just be super happy with what I'm doing, or just in general super happy. So how do I achieve that rather than the career and the house and the this and that and the dollar amount in my bank account? And it's like those things can still be important. Obviously, you don't want to be broke.
Because to a certain degree, you do need to have that in order for your life to be a specific thing, your kids to be able to have opportunities. Like you can't just not care about that, but maybe how you get there doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, in a weird way, we're 27. We're probably a fourth of the way done with life. It's like, how did that fourth go? It's like,
I loved it. I don't know about you.
I mean, I'd rather be happier. Like, I don't want the accolades of stuff. Like, I'd rather just enjoy what life is. And then what are those things that are going to have you enjoy that? And trying to achieve that and go for that. I think people get, especially kind of like we talked about before in this episode of the American society, it's like, you should be doing more. You should be doing a better job. You should be making more money. You should be doing this for your kids. And you should be doing this for yourself. And it's very like progressive, push yourself forward. You always have to be gaining traction and moving forward to where like that. I think that's what's weird about the Europe thing or that society. It seems like they're not really thinking about that. They're just going, what am I gonna enjoy and have a good time with? It's like they're living into their hundreds and happy as hell, and they're just like making pasta and drinking wine.
I mean, the lady in the episode, she looked like she was late 70s, early 80s, and she was like 102 or something, or 101.
And you kept talking about like, look at the way she's moving. It's like the way she's moving was a very
youthful.
Yeah, youthful way. Like, she's not like decrepit moving around, hard to pick up stuff or do stuff. She's like moving the dough, and it just looks like a young, youthful person moving the dough and pulling things apart and making the stuff. Like, her motor skills are really good. Her hand-eye coordination is really good. The way she's moving
not like
around
hobbling when she walks.
Yeah, it's just very youthful and easy and whatever. And I don't know. I think you start to think more about that sort of stuff rather than, at least I think we are. I am, especially being back home this last week. It's like, you know, we go out to my mom's and it's 30-acre farm. It's like, yeah, this is what I want. I used to want to be in downtown LA. Skyscraper, like cool thing and whatever. And like super, I don't know, just like in that kind of environment. And now it's like, no, I want the like, that's all I kept thinking about. My mom got a side-by-side and I'm like, oh, it'd be so cool if she had this as long as she has like the tractor over there and just like keeps fixing this and like it works. And once one thing goes, she just keeps redoing it or keeps fixing it, just like the tractor and just like the vehicles and that sort of thing. Cause I don't know, there's so much more like that is more intriguing to me than we'll just get a new one. We'll just get a new one. We'll just get a new one.
Yeah. That's where you get caught up though.
Yeah, maybe. And I think you got to figure out where to cut the line.
Yeah.
Of like, this is just stupid now. But like,
because now it's going back to like, well, what stress am I adding by just trying to create this story?
100%. 100%. But it's the, you know, we have phones that we've had for, I don't know, 5 years now or something like that.
Sure.
Maybe 3, 4.
Yeah, we got him in Texas. Got him in Texas last year.
Yeah, so maybe 3 years or something. And my brother said that too. I was like, did you get a new phone? Because it looked different. He's like, no. He's like, I don't need a new phone. I don't know why I would need a new phone. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Why do we need the next best thing? Like, that's not happiness. I think that's the point I'm getting to. It's like, that's not the thing that's keeping you happy or making you happy, of getting the new shit every year or just like chasing that sort of dragon. That's not it. It's like, I don't know. It's, maybe I don't know what it is, but it's not that.
Yeah. To where I see the opposite opportunity in that as well, of keeping things simple and not trying to do it in the smartest, most efficient way. It's like, your mom was so happy with it thing. It's like, yeah, and that's new and she paid for it. And it's like, look at how much use it got, even just this last weekend, how much use she'll continue to have. It's easy. She knows that it works. She can rely on it. Like, that is happiness compared to, well, I've had this and it works and I can keep fixing it and whatever. It's like, yeah, but you're adding stress to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's an element of just, I don't know. Yeah, like I said before, knowing when to cut the line and move along. That's hard to figure out, but I think I'd rather push that than cut it early, maybe. I think I've had problems with trying to get attaching happiness to material things or external things. It's like, that's just not really what it is, you know? I don't know.
That's the only way I think we're different. I don't really do it with that stuff. With like stuff. Because stuff to me seems like, oh, that's another thing I have to think about. Yeah. Like if you like getting the new phones or gadgets, only thing I see is, so we got to go to the store and I got to probably clear my phone out of stuff. And then we got to sit there and like look at whatever and sign stuff. Like that is more of a task and it's not worth getting the thing.
Yeah.
That I typically will like keep writing out on the thing just to avoid the process.
Yeah.
Of having to
totally.
deal with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think to a certain extent, I do enjoy like fixing things and doing things if it's semi quickly and infrequent. I don't want to spend a week trying to fix a car anymore. But like I will replace a battery in a computer rather than have to go like research the computers and do this and do that. And I'd rather just get a new battery and fix a thing. Mm-hmm. Because that's simple and quick and easy. I think it's what you said, the simplicity of it. Like,
yeah, to where I think when we were younger, or when we first, like I remember there was one time when we first it was after high school, but like decided we were going to be together basically, not just be friends. And we went to Starbucks and we just like talked for hours. And it was that realization, even more so than we were friends. We had conversations like this a lot, but it was more just like a full spectrum of life of like, oh, there's someone else that thinks like this. That it is just, if you're someone that wants to achieve a lot or work, like if your only RPM is intense, because I don't even want to say work hard, it's just intense. I think you go, I'm going to be intense with everything.
Yeah.
And when you're young, everything becomes available to you, or you allow it to be. That's like, well, now I'm going to go intense with all of these things. That as you get older, I think you start to realize, and we're at the infancy of this even, that you start to realize, oh, that doesn't like add up to anything. Like that's a loose end. Like you're just going to keep doing that and like nothing happens with that. Or you figure out where you need to dial in the intensity. And then I'm sure there is a next level. I mean, it was even in Carrie's vows, where he's like, I only did things because I wanted to do them and the benefit for me. Maybe that's exactly what he said, but along these lines. That, and we have talked about this so much, or you have really, about then when you're with someone, then it's directed towards, well, what's going to benefit that person? How can I work hard for that person? Or what decisions can I make that will benefit, alter, and add to what they need versus just what is my singly focused? Then you add kids into that. It's like, how much of the things that I'm focusing and stressing on now are my kids going to be like, I don't care about that. Mm-hmm. Like, I care about just these things. Do I care if you have gray hair? Absolutely not. Does not matter. Do I care if you can spend time and like be emotionally stable and like a good person and be able to be kind and handle the stress? Yeah. They're not gonna, I mean, it's like even when we were teaching yesterday, I was like, oh, I'm getting so irritated. Granted, I don't think I can create a through line of a whole class of kids versus if it was just my 1 or 2 or 3 kids. Like, I'm also dealing with 15 of you guys being annoying. So maybe that's something different. But I'm like, oh, I am not able to keep my chill here. It's like, got to work on that. I can't just like, well, because you're annoying, I'm going to be a little bit testier. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not good enough. I was like, yeah, focus on that. Put attention towards that. Put intensity towards working on that. Not some of this other fluff stuff that the person that I'm with or the kids, they're not going to care or notice or get benefit from at all.
Well, I think, like you said, there's such this intensity and it's so broad that you can't have that much intensity for everything, and then grabbing onto these things and trying to be intense with them that don't matter, to where I think what tends to happen is you can't have all of that gumption for every single thing. So then you just start to lessen the intensity all around towards like, no, you need to make it simple and be intense with that singular thing. Like you pick a few things that do matter to you, or you do think move the needle, and you be intense with those. And then all of the other stuff you kind of just get rid of, and you don't worry so much about. It's not about those things. You only have so much bandwidth. That's something that we have said before. Of you only have so much bandwidth, so you can only put so much focus and intensity towards so many things, that you have to figure those things out. And I think as we continue to get older, we start to figure out more and more what those things are. And they probably even change over time too. I cared a lot about this thing before, and now it's changing to something else. And that's why I think we probably won't change on the health and fitness stuff, because that filters and affects so many other things. That if you have some intensity and some effort towards that stuff and you're a healthy person, that just makes everything else better. When you're sleeping properly, your body's in good shape, and you're eating proper foods, and you're being filled with nutrients and all of that good stuff, you can now put the time and the effort and the intensity towards the things that will move other needles. Because if you're not, now all of your focus is always on that, or your health is always a detriment to everything else you're always doing. You can't do your job as effectively, or you can't play with your kids, or you can't be attentive to them as effectively. It starts to affect all of those other things. I think that's why it continues to show me, or just like come back up each time, that this is one of those things that is important, because if I can be healthy, I can then put the intensity towards other things. If I'm not, I just can't put the same sort of time, effort, and efficiency and intensity and all of the other words towards that thing. It's like if you're not sleeping well and you're not eating well and you're unhealthy, how much time and effort do you think you're going to have to be able to put towards your kids that need it? They need the attention, they need the correction, they need the guidance. But you're an unhealthy person that can't figure that stuff out. You sleep 5-6 hours a night, and it's not good sleep, and you're barely working out, and you're not a healthy person. And so that probably is going to affect them, because the things that you're buying and putting into your body is going to be what they're having. They're not seeing you exercise and be healthy, so they're not going to be. And now that whole chain is going to just continue to affect everybody. It's that thing with like type 2 diabetes, or any of the like people that are overweight. It's a whole family thing, because it's everybody in that line is getting affected by it, because the parents are eating away, they're feeding their kids that way. Those kids grow up, they continue to eat the same way, then they're going to feed their kids that way. That, the whole break the cycle thing, there's truth to that, because now this family is now eating healthy, and they work out and exercise, and it just continues to be that way. And I think that stuff is really important to have, because it affects so much of your other stuff down the line. Your mood, your attitude, like your work ethic, your energy. It filters into the whole rest of your life. So how are you able to do all that stuff when you need to step up and do something extra? You have the capability to do that, rather than, I can't even sleep 6 hours. Like, I can't put anything else extra on my plate. It's just, that's one thing that I just don't think will change, because of how much it affects everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, like, directing your intensity with that. Like, that is one of those things that we have both decided, no, like, keep the RPMs high with that, and continue to be smart about it and educate ourselves more, so that we can help the kids do that. And like, what does our household look like for that? What are they going to be seeing? It's not, well, we talk about this and we go on a podcast and talk about it. Like, no, what are our kids just going to observe? What are they going to see us doing? How are they going to see us behaving with food? Or how are they going to see us behaving with activity? We need to set our life up to be able to maintain that. So when you talk about the rest of the spectrum, it's not how much can we crush in every single one of these avenues. If those avenues are getting affected, or if those avenues are affecting the health aspects of our life, maybe like, some jobs that we have, or maybe certain things that we want to do, would that impact how we maintain our health? It's like, okay, well, maybe that's something to think about and adjust, because that is one of the more top priorities that we want to have.
Well, and I think it's not only just kids, it's like everybody else around you.
Well, yeah.
It's the rest of your family or your friends or your work environment, the group around you. When you're promoting that, or you're a healthy person and you have that figured out. And I think once you've been doing it long enough, you can reduce the intensity because it becomes autopilot. It becomes second nature. We don't have to put that much time and effort into it. It's like we go to the grocery store and we know what we're buying and we know what we're getting, and we have a better sense of what's good for us, what's not good for us. And same with the activity. Like, we were back for five days or something like that, and 6 days maybe, and we worked out twice, and we know, like, okay, we're coming back. We just got to get back into our thing, go to the gym, work out, get exercise, get outside, go for walks, get the sleep schedule back together. It's like you just have this second nature, or this, I don't know. It's not so difficult to do it anymore. And then all of the people around you pick up on it too. And then you're having those conversations with them of how can I, fix my sleep, or what should I do for workouts, or what should I be eating, or the natural conversation around health and activity and all that kind of stuff just starts to happen. And you can affect the people in your family too, and in your work environment, because they're obviously noticing something. For us, like, we do a podcast and it seems like a fair amount of our family listens to it, so they know generally what we're talking about a lot of the time. So those conversations just naturally come up of health, and you just have conversations with them, and you plant seeds, and hopefully they grow, and over time I think we have both seen that they do, and like you're happy with that. And then now when you're at family gatherings, like more people are wanting to bring healthier food or better options, or well, let's sit outside because it's nice out, and let's play a game outside, or let's go for a walk, or let's do this or do that. It just happens more naturally. And I think the same thing happens at work too. And it's the healthier that everybody is, I think the more positivity that there is about that stuff, because there's just so much like studies and data and that sort of stuff, that a lot of this stuff affects attitude and moods, and our society seems pretty on edge and upset and angry and sad and depressed, and there's ADHD that's going crazy, and to put the craziness out there, like ADHD and autism and all that kind of stuff, like I don't understand how we don't look at the health of people like that's not having an effect. Something that RFK Jr. was talking about before, like people didn't have allergies when I grew up. How does everybody have allergies now? People didn't have ADHD when I grew up. People didn't have autism when I grew up. It's like, I don't think those things were just under the radar and people weren't diagnosing it. I think it's ramped up significantly. How do we not look at food supply, how we're eating, our activity levels? I mean, we have it at the studio. We've talked about it a million times, but you can tell which kids get a lot of activity and eat healthy versus the ones that don't. The ones that don't can't sit still, have the ADHD issues, and they can't listen, can't look you in the eye. You have to tell them 14 times to stop doing what they're doing or to do what they should be doing, to where the kids that are healthy and whatever don't have those issues at all. And I don't, obviously this is our like end all be all type of thing. So of course to us, it is the major issue of everything, but I just don't get how we don't as a society look at that stuff more of, this is clearly affecting the entire society, and all of the issues that we have, maybe not all, but a lot of the issues that we have is probably directly related to all this stuff. And there's just not a lot of focus. So I think if you're somebody that has a lot of focus on it, and, you know, we had a little bit of this conversation with your dad too, of like, I feel like he's kind of where we were at a little while ago of, why do I even have conversations with people or talk to people because they don't listen? And it's 100% valid and true. It's like, it's super frustrating to do that. But I think you just have to not have the attachment to it of, you can't have the attachment to the outcome, whether they do it or not. You have to have the attachment to the integrity of you helping that person. What information am I talking
about? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm somebody that they're coming to me or wanting to have a conversation with me. So they must think I have a little bit more information about this stuff. Or
maybe that you care about it. So they're just trying to like relate to you and have things in common, which is still, to me, that still shows like, okay, so I'm presenting myself in a way that I want to, because you clearly see that this is something that you should bring up with me because it's an interest of mine.
Yeah.
So I'm living that.
Yeah. So I think like you should have the conversations with them, and you should talk about it, and you should try to help and give what you know and give the suggestions and do that. The hard part is not having the attachment to whether they do it or not. It's like, I think you have to have the attachment to your integrity of helping that person. I did what I could and gave them the information that I could, that I knew at that time, to help that person. And whether it works or not, you know, that's varying, and that is very dependent. But if you don't say anything, there's 100% certainty that nothing will happen. But if you do say something, there's at least some small percentage that something will happen and something will go to the positive. You know, I feel like we've had that effect on a few people in our family, that if we wouldn't have said anything and never done anything, those people wouldn't also be people that are now like, yeah, I can see how this is important now, and I'm noticing other people are not doing these things. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about that or share that. And then they start to, and then it's like, oh, well, nobody listens. And, you know, and with your dad specifically, you've been like, yeah, this was you.
Yeah.
And he's always like, yeah, I know, which is awesome, because a lot of people don't have that self-awareness. But it is just like, it doesn't take one time or two times. Like, it takes years to get people to plant the seed and to have people start to think about it more and try to apply it more. And I don't know. I think it's one of these things that it's weird to me that people don't try or care about it. Maybe just because it's been in my life for so long and I see the benefit so much. But, you know, we talk about all the time of, well, we know exactly why this is happening for you.
Right.
Because you're not sleeping, you're not eating what you should, and you're not exercising. That like, all of the studies show that those three things affect exactly what you're talking about. So if you were to fix those things, my guess would be that your issues would be better or solved.
Yeah, I think for us it's been easier because it was such a part of our adolescence with sports and with me with dance. It's like, you had to be somewhat, like, for me it was easier to be better at dance if I was generally in shape. Now, in shape for what I would say now is like, no, I was eating trashy food and my recovery was terrible, and I was just push my foot to the gas, and then whatever way I could push it harder, that's what I was going to do. So I wasn't thinking about efficiency. But I think when then it's like the whole family approach. Even though it's just a family of us, it's like we were both so, like, that was a non-negotiable. So there wasn't, well, I want to really stay into it, but the person that I'm with is never going to go to the gym, or they're never going to eat that way. So now we're cooking 2 meals all the time. Like, it was we were both on the same page from the jump, and we've never steered onto different pages.
Yeah.
So I think it's easier when you can have everyone around you be that way. And I think, again, it was easier for us because we moved away. So we don't have a lot of altering influence.
Yeah.
I guess. Like, I could see it being a lot harder when, like, my dad, when he is trying to change this, but then he's going and hanging out with family and going to family functions and doing that. It's like, well, people at family function, you're trying to feed a good chunk of people.
Yeah.
So the healthier options might not be as easy. You're just going to try to feed that. Now you're tested with, well, should I have the unhealthy foods, or do I take the time to eat before or bring my own food? Like, there's just more effort that you have to
totally
put in. And I think we got the easier end of the stick with that. But it is like, I don't know if it's as, I don't know. I think it also is regional a little bit.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've lived in California, Texas, and here, and by far, like, California is healthier.
Yeah.
By far. And that's a cultural, societal thing over there. It's like there's just not as many overweight people and
I would say
unhealthy
here as
people.
well a little bit.
Yeah, people are healthier here. I think weirdly it's like because it's warm year round in both those places, there's just more outside activity that can be had. And I don't know. I think it's a cultural thing though, like what people are eating and what people are doing for health. It's just there and it's apparent. And I think like what you were talking about of couples or people that one person's trying to get healthier and choose certain foods or meal, like it's hard to cook two separate things or whatever. And to me, that's something you're going to have to put the importance to. Yeah, we're going to cook separate meals. Like I'm going to cook something that's better or healthier for me or whatever. And you're going to have to cook something else if you don't want it, because it's important to me to be healthy. And I think when you stick to that, it's the same conversation or same thing I was talking about before. We both were talking about of if you're just kind of always having the conversations with the people over a year, 2 years or something, that will start to become something for them and more. If you're just going to be very strict about, I'm going to have my healthy meals and I'm going to get my activity, whatever, I think that will bleed into the other person. I don't think that stuff necessarily goes unnoticed. Now, if you're an asshole about it, no, they're going to be, kind of.
They're going to be stubborn in the opposite way because you're an asshole.
Right. But if you're just like, no, I want to do this and I want to be healthy and I want to do what I can to be healthy, and you're promoting that and you're doing that and not being a jerk.
If you're a good partner,
you're
a good family member, if you're giving them any sort of negative feedback on that, like, you suck.
Yeah, on both sides.
If you're like, really, you want to eat a separate meal?
Right.
You were trying to be healthy. Oh, you're going to go to the gym. You're going to focus on that. It's like, if you're giving that person shit about that.
I know. It's so funny. Like, that does get, like, people do give shit about that when it's like, yeah, I'm trying to be healthy. Wouldn't we both agree that that's better than not? Right. It's like, oh, you're going to be a nice person to that person. You're going to talk, like, you're going to be nice to them. It's like, what? Yeah, of course it'd be nice. But yeah, I think we want I said something to them, they did it, and now they're better. We want that easy equation. It's never that. It's so messy. They did it for a couple weeks or a month, and then they didn't do it again for 6 months, and then they tried it again for 2 months, and then they're off again for 6 months, and it just takes a long time for that stuff to happen. I think in all of those ways. It is whatever
your hardest or one of your battles is. Because I would say, like, my equivalent to that is people since the jump have been telling me what I just talked about today, of like, you got to chill out. Like, this is, I mean, my parents would tell me this all the time. Like, you're going to be the one that, like, gets cancer.
Yeah.
For me. Because, like, you are stressed out, you overwhelmed, like, you're too, it's the intensity thing. It's like,
well, you're 27 years old and your
hair's
gray.
People tell me that. It's like, I have gray hair at 27. That is not a
coincidence.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so people have been telling me that. Have I listened? No. So I'm like, this is how you gotta achieve. Like, well, okay, but maybe there's a different approach. Maybe it's not, oh, I can just eat whatever I want, or maybe I can't just not get activity, or maybe this whole like healthy lifestyle thing, there's something to that. It's like, and for some people it takes them to where they have a health scare, or it takes them until they're overweight and they're like, oh, I don't like this. It's like, well, yeah, you can't eat the same way and have the same lifestyle that you could when you were in your 20s potentially. It's like that is a usual trend that you see.
Yes.
Is people that are in high school, they're in shape, they look great, they feel great. Obviously, they have youth on their side. Then they get older and it starts getting, oh, a little worse, oh, a little worse, oh, a little worse. That is me with gray hair.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of worse, a little worse.
It starts to ramp up quickly. Yeah. Well, I think it's, in a weird way, it's like subliminal marketing. It's like you just are constantly showing health, and you're having conversations about it, and you kind of connect things to that. You're just always why is it that whenever somebody starts to get a little bit healthier, something works for them, they won't shut up about it? It's because
they're like, I figured out a secret.
They feel better.
Yeah.
And things are better, and they figured something out, and now they want to share it with people that maybe are struggling with the same thing. Like, I don't know. To me, it's one of those things where when people end up becoming healthier, or they're active more and they're noticing all the benefits of that and they won't shut up about it, why not pay attention? And I think people do pay attention and they tend to ask questions, but everybody's on their own timeline. But it's just, there's something there. So you could probably recognize that and be like, oh, there must be something to this, because every single person that this happens to, they end up not shutting up about it, and it becomes their life, and it becomes important, and they see, like, they share all the benefits of it. And I think most people tend to know that, but it's a hard thing to get started and to continue to do. And that's why we have so many podcasts about it and talk about it so much, is it's really difficult. We try to give so many different examples and ideas and thoughts and directions on how to get started and get it going. But like, you have to, I don't know, being somebody who is on that side and healthy and want to keep going, I don't know, I see how beneficial it is to be that way, that it's hard to have those conversations, especially when people don't want to hear it, or maybe not so much don't want to hear it, because I don't just like walk around telling people, like bugging them about getting healthier. I usually am waiting for people to have the conversation with me, and I'll talk to them about it. But I don't know. I think like I didn't have a lot to say when your dad and I were talking about it a little bit, and just being able to sit and think about it more. It's like, yeah, you kind of just got to be a subliminal marketer about it, not expect so much of an outcome from it, and not be so dependent on whether they take your information, take your advice, and be just happy that they're curious, and like be happy that you have the integrity to say like, yeah, this would be a good idea. This is what I would suggest. And there you go. Rather than keeping your mouth shut. Because again, you don't say anything, there's 0% chance that you're going to be of any help.
It is funny though, last thing that I have to say with the gray hair thing, that to me is like people that are overweight. It's like, this is your visual reminder where you didn't do the work, like you didn't make the smart choices, or like something happened and you didn't course correct or whatever. It's like the gray hair is a daily visual reminder of like, you gotta chill out.
Yeah, I think that stuff is kind of funny where you do get that visual.
It's like, I remember when my dad was trying to be less, just like kind of like be calmer and chill and whatever, and all the cops, they did that like blue band thing, or if you had like the bracelet and if you found yourself like getting angry or being negative or whatever, like you would pull it or whatever. It's like, this is my blue band. Every time I go, you did this.
Yeah.
This is years of built up stress, and now it's in your hair.
I think that's it's years of choices that you've made.
Yes.
You know, and it's the same thing with people that are unhealthy and whatever version that is. Like you are making the choices. Mm-hmm. So if you don't want this to be around and this be the visual, you have to make different choices. Mm-hmm. It's all of the solutions are simple, but they're not easy. They're hard to do, but it's a simple answer. It's like, stop stressing out. Stop putting yourself in stressful situations all the time. And for people that are having health problems or whatever, it's like, you have to figure out how to not have those. Eat better food, get more activity, sleep better. Typically those three things are going to move the needle very aggressively, especially over time. Like the gray hair thing started with a couple strands, and then it continues and continues and continues. It's like people don't just all of a sudden...
You just have one bad meal and you have 60 pounds of weight.
Right, exactly. Like this is a continuation of choices, and it's going to be the same thing in reverse. You want to get out of it, it's a continuation of good choices. It's not going to happen overnight. And I think that's the other thing of being on the side of somebody who's giving advice. You have to know, like, they're going to have to make the same good choices over and over again for a long period of time. Like, just because I gave them one piece of advice, they're not going to change now in 3 months or 2 months or 4 months or 6 months even. Even if they were to take that advice and do it, like, they took a long time to get to this place. It's probably going to take a long time to get out of this place. Mm-hmm. They have so much behavior things to change, and even just what their body can handle. You know, you see The Biggest Loser show, and that's such an American thing to do, of like, how aggressive and hard and quickly can we solve our problems? Mm-hmm. And then it was something crazy, like 95% of them end up gaining the weight back. It's because you didn't change any behaviors. You just threw them into a box for 6 months or whatever the heck it was. It's like, yeah, people can lose weight quickly, but they can also gain it back when they haven't changed any behaviors.
Yeah.
It's like, we can cut out caffeine for a little while, but go back to your behaviors. We can cut out, sugar for a little while, but then people tend to go back to their behaviors. It's like, that's why we always talk about that. It's the behaviors and the consistency of making the good choices over and over again. It's not just one fluke 3 months and all of a sudden you're healthy now. And then when you do get healthier or in a place that you enjoy a lot more, the game doesn't stop. You're not just done now. You can't just go back to what you're doing before. That's where it's hopefully you've built the behaviors. Again, why The Biggest Loser doesn't ever work. You hopefully through that process, you've built the behaviors to be able to continue that life forward.
Well, we talked about that with my dad, with like people in training, and how it's the newbie gains of stuff that you hope, like, they get to a point where, like, we've seen this many times where people will go to the gym and they'll start working out and they'll see their body change pretty quickly, or they'll start eating healthier and they'll lose a bunch of weight really quickly. And then they get to that fork in the road where they go, okay, did that excite you enough to go, okay, well, now when those newbie gains stop, what do you do to keep going down that path? And then some people just go back to their behaviors and they gain it back. And why yo-yo dieting is such a thing, and people gain and lose weight and gain and lose weight. It's like everyone comes to that split.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, yeah, but in order to keep that progress going, you have to add more, because your big throw at anything is going to work. Now you have to be a little bit more strategic about it. And sometimes that can be frustrating, or it's like you just got to dial in a little bit more and dial in a little bit more, and then
and I think persistence, like a lot of the times too, it's just you have to continue to keep doing it. And even if there isn't a ton of progress being made, it's so much better for you to keep the good behavior that you're doing and have the persistence even through not crazy changes, and then along that figure out what things maybe need to change and adjust and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we keep talking about him, but your dad's the perfect example of that, of just continuously keeping the persistence even through certain plateaus or certain things of like, nothing's really changing, nothing's really happening, or I hurt my shoulder and now what do I do? And it's like, especially injuries, that will make people go, well, I can't go to the gym anymore and whatever, to where he was like, I just won't do a bunch of shoulder stuff. I'll go to the gym and do all the other things, or I'll do like,
or I'll figure out why did this thing happen?
Exactly. To where it's that persistence and just continuously doing it. If you get to that fork in the road, it's like, make the good choices. If your progress is stalled, you have to continue to make the good choices, and whether the results come with it or not, because
well, and I think even that, like, the results start to become smaller and smaller to where you don't notice it as much, but it's still like 2% every day still starts to add up. Still starts to add up. That then you show him a picture of a vacation of 3 years ago, and he's like, I thought I looked great then, but like compared to now, like, and you were in the last 3 years of small changes. Yeah.
And then they would say, like, I felt like I haven't really changed that much.
Right.
To where it becomes so slow growing, and I don't know, slow changes that you don't notice right away because it's not the big ones. It's kind of that, it's not the J curve thing, because you get such fast growth right away, but then it is like a slower, whatever. It's like a stock.
It's reverse compound interest. You get it all right away, and then it starts to teeter.
Yeah. And you just have to keep the persistence and keep doing it, and it will slowly continue to grow as long as you're making the good choices and having the good behaviors and stuff. And again, I think that being people that are true believers of it, like you should, I don't know. I think it's good to try to have those conversations with people and try to help. Because that's the problem. Like, even with us doing the podcast, you don't know which ones are going to hit and which ones are not going to hit, or the shorts or anything. And I think it's the same thing with, we'll go back home and have conversations with people, and so much of the time, and I'm sure we do it with people too, but they'll be like, yeah, I remember when you said that thing and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I don't even remember saying that thing.
Yeah. Like, I agree with myself. Yeah, I like that I said that to you,
but that's funny that was the thing that stuck to you. It's like, you don't get to choose what's the good advice and what's the bad advice.
Or we both had that where they'll say like, yeah, and you told me this once. It's like, that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But like, you are now 5 years later able to act upon that.
Right.
Again, like planting the seed. It's like, you weren't ready for it potentially 5 years ago, but it still stuck with you to where now you're able to utilize that and see the benefit of whatever that conversation was. Or
another great example of that is the video that Abby sent you, who we just had on the podcast not too long ago. She sent you that video of that 70-year-old woman getting started, like, weightlifting and stuff, and her transformation from 70 years old to 74. Like 74 is ridiculous. So it's like, even if you're in your 70s, like, it's never too late. That's such a cliche, but it's so true. It's never too late to start doing anything positive. Because this 70-year-old woman is now 74 and like deadlifting and just like doing great. She probably just prolonged her life by, who knows, another how many years, but
also the quality of her life while she's here is going to be much better.
Yeah, exactly. So again, for the person giving advice, you never know what it's going to be, when it's going to be, and then it's never too late to do that. I mean, when your dad started getting serious about all this stuff, what was he, 49, 48?
No, it must have been after 50.
So even that, I think he said he's been eating that way for 3 years now, 4 years. So it's like he was in almost 50 years old, maybe 50 years old.
51, probably.
And
50, 51.
Now probably in the best shape of his life.
He's going to be thinking like,
yeah.
He's going to listen to what
He's
yell
screaming
back.
into the, they don't pay attention to me. But like, even that, like, how much has he done to be able to have quality of life, prolong his life, all of that sort of stuff? And he started at,
Yeah, he looks the most muscular now than he did when I was growing up.
Yeah.
At his younger ages.
Well, and even now, like he was just telling us, he hasn't really had pain in his shoulder, pain in his back. Like, the pain is going away. And I think that really amplifies the quality of life stuff when you don't have the pain. But yeah, it's not too late to do any of it. It's not too late to do any of it. And it's not too late to give advice to whoever it is, because you never know what's going to stick. You never know what's going to become something that they really latch on to and go for, and then all of a sudden you cut to 3 years later, that lady that was 70 years old, now 74, you cut to 4 years later. We go, oh, 4 years is not that long. It's long when it's one day at a time. And even the person that, I mean, it's like, it's hard to even think that your dad wasn't this way all the time. Like when I first met him, or you growing up, to where he's only been doing this for maybe 5 years now.
Sure.
So it's like, that's not that long of a time. And his whole life is different.
Yeah.
And he's different because of all of the good choices that he's made. It's like, so you don't know what you having the conversations with the person now, it could be completely different 4 or 5 years from now. And they're, you know, maybe not in their 50s or 60s or 70s, but they're younger and whatever. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I was thinking a lot about that, like on the plane and stuff, of the, yeah, how do you have, like, where am I at now with those conversations? Because they don't bug me as much anymore of, well, I told them this and they're not doing it anymore, or they're not doing it at all. They never even tried it. I kind of just, maybe it just happens so much that I'm like, yeah, that's expected.
Sure.
You give advice or you try to help and people don't take that. Like, that's me as well. People give me advice and I'm like, I'm not doing any of that. And then cut to 3 years later, I'm like, yeah, you were right. Yeah. I remember thinking that or hearing that, or you say that, and I was like, I don't think so. And then now here I am, and I've taken that advice, and now, yeah, this part of my life is better. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you just have to not have the attachment to the outcome of whether they do it or not. Just have to, like, have the pride and the integrity of, I'm trying to help them, and mm-hmm. that's what I did. You done?
Yeah, I gotta pee so bad.
All right.
I'm just like, tapping my foot.
Like and subscribe.
Please.
See you later.
Bye.